Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show, Let Her Out to Play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Oh my goodness, I am so excited to be sharing my sweet friend Corree with you guys today. She is my guest. And when the Lord literally connected us on a mountain, where were we, Corree?
Arizona.
We were in Arizona. I'm not a hiker, but Corree apparently was way more experienced than me, and we had to partner up. And so Corree and I had just met. We connected, we hiked, and I was feeling really good about it until I got about halfway up, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go back down. But we just kept talking, and we found out that we had so much in common. It was really crazy, and I was just like, this is totally the Lord. He put me with this woman so that I could find out all these amazing things about her, and we just became the best of friends. So I am so thrilled. Welcome, Corree Roofener, that you are on our podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Angie. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, definitely God's gift to us was each other. And it was such a beautiful uniting. We talk about it's not always, we're not for everyone, but we are
Yeah.
for some people and we're for each other. It's like we get each other. And I love that I met this woman in Arizona. You live on the East Coast, I live in the mountains of Montana, and yet we can have this friendship.
Yes, and I love that. And so when I started this series on teenage moms, it was a no-brainer that I was going to bring my sweet friend Corree on because she was a teen mom and she has a lot of heart and grit and guts and all the things. And I was like, okay, Corree, you've got to come on and share your story with us.
Yes.
And
Oh,
she
I'm
was,
honored. I'm honored
yeah,
to share my story about teen pregnancy because it's a tough subject and
yeah.
tough subjects need to be talked about.
Absolutely. So, why don't you start by telling us you were 17 when you found out you were pregnant, and what was coming into your mind at that time? Like fear, shame, confusion, just like take us back to that moment when you found out you were expecting.
Yeah. My story is a little bit different or a lot different than a lot of teen pregnancies. And the reason is that I had already experienced a lot of the things that happen when you find out you're pregnant. I
Hmm.
was not living at home. I was actually living on my own, and I had been living on my own since the age of 15.
Okay.
So I had all those responsibilities, all those hard knocks kind of
Hmm.
already happened. What I didn't know and what was a gift, I believed, and some people will be out there and be like, that's not a gift. You weren't in the place. It was a gift, is that I didn't really think I could get pregnant.
Hmm.
Um, I had endometriosis really bad as a young teenager, and I had been with my first boyfriend for over 3.5 years and never got pregnant and was never on the pill. So I was like, I don't think I can get pregnant. And there was a mourning process there, even at 16 or 17, because I'd always wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I opened my eyes one day and realized that my one of my closest and dearest friends was the kind of man that I always wanted to be with.
Mm.
He family came first. He really cared for me as a human. And on Valentine's Day, 1993, I decided to take the first step because I didn't think he ever would. And I kissed him. I just kissed him after we went bowling. I was that forward girl. And it was not love at first sight, right? That's not what it was. But it was like I knew instantly that I was coming home. It was like there was this full circle moment. And a short 3 months later, I got pregnant.
That one kiss, huh?
That one kiss. So pretty sure I actually got pregnant on my birthday, my 17th birthday. And so yeah, that was the start of it. But I got pregnant and I realized, you know what? This is a gift. I
Mhm.
don't really know what is going to happen. I didn't know if my now husband, then boyfriend would stick around. I didn't know a lot of things. But what I did know is that I was born to be a mom and this was my opportunity. And this was not happening for no reason.
Right.
And so I never will tell you that I was scared because
Okay.
I don't remember ever being scared.
Hmm.
I remember being very contemplative, like, okay, how are you going to do this, sis?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a full-time job. At that point, I'd actually dropped out of high school. I was no longer in high school.
Hmm.
Um, but I had a full-time job, and how would I take care of this baby? Who would do daycare? All those things, right? Those were the things that were processing through my head. Not, I'm scared. I will say I was a little fearful of having the conversation with my father because I knew how he would react. I knew he would bash me, but that wasn't something new. That was
Okay.
old story. So it was
Hmm.
just a matter of saying it and taking the response and then going on with my life. And I did that. And he reacted exactly as I thought he would. And that was okay.
What about your boyfriend? What was his response when you first told him?
Yeah.
Because you'd said you weren't really sure.
Yeah. So, it's funny because Chad's older brother had had a not so good instance in life where he pretty much was tricked into fatherhood.
Hmm.
And you can't be tricked in. That's the wrong word, but given misinformation.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's that belief, right, in the back of everyone's head that was involved in that child's life, which was a beautiful thing, but still.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so immediately that was his response. I thought you said you couldn't get pregnant.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't think I could, right? There was a lot of fear in his part. He was raised by a mom that really nurtured him and um, not sheltered him in some ways, but it was a different situation. And so there was a lot of fear. And the thought for me is that I will never ask somebody to stand beside me that doesn't want to be beside me
Hmm.
because that's not what's best for a child. And that's what I told him. I said, I don't expect you to stay. If that's not what you want, if this little boy, at that point, we didn't know it was a little boy, obviously, but if this child is not what you want,
Hmm.
don't stay just to stay because you'll actually do more harm. And I knew that from my own childhood,
Hmm.
right? So it was a hard pregnancy. I'll say that, like a hard pregnancy of finding our way. And so 30 days before our oldest son was born, he moved in with me. Before that, we had lived apart. We were really like, is this going to work? Are we going to be able to do this? He
Yeah.
moved in with me. And that was December of 1993. And that same man still stands next to me.
I love that. Of course. And so when did you guys get married?
We got married when our oldest, Tyler, was a year and a half. So it was July 29th of 1995.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is,
He was our ring bearer. He walked down the aisle in his little tuxedo.
yeah.
And
So this is,
that was another belief that I felt really strongly about. When I
hmm.
marry somebody, I'm going to marry them because I want to spend the rest of my life with them. And I
Hmm.
know that in my heart, not because I'm pregnant, not because someone told us to. And there was a lot of judgment. I think the judgment hurt more than anything else, honestly,
Right.
because it was from people you thought you knew.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't you getting married? Because marriage is forever. And I want to
Yeah.
be sure that this is the man that I marry forever. And we couldn't be sure. We had been best friends for a long time, but we'd only been together as a couple months.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make that decision. So yeah, he proposed to me in January of 1995, and we planned our own wedding, and in July got married.
That's beautiful. So you have big, well, 95, like this is 25. So tell us what's coming up.
30 years. Yeah, it's a big deal. We've always really felt like every anniversary is a big deal, but
Hmm.
we've been really intentional about celebrating the big milestones like a lot of
Yeah.
people do. But we should celebrate the small steps too,
Yeah.
right? The everyday, the tired. And so we actually renewed our vows on our 25th, and that was extraordinarily
Beautiful.
special.
Yeah.
And then this year, our 30th, we'll be taking our first trip to Europe. Always said that our first overseas trip will be on our 30th wedding anniversary. And so we are doing that. We're hiking Tour de Mont Blanc,
Hmm.
but we're also hiking it as a co-fundraiser for our nonprofit that we started, Fostering the Summit. So it's really this beautiful cyclical celebration of life, which is kind
Hmm.
of the reason Fostering the Summit exists. It's about the summit of life.
Yeah.
So we're very excited.
That is so beautiful. I'm really anxious and excited, envious, and all the things. I can't wait to watch your journey unfold as you guys like put the pictures up on social media and we see all the beauty of what's happening. I
Yeah.
love that. So tell us a little bit more about your family having like a big family and you have gone through fostering, you've adopted, and then like wrap us up and tell us about this um, fostering summit that you have because we
Yeah.
want to hear about that.
Life is a beautiful evolution if we allow it to be. And I feel like the problem is that a lot of times we want to control every step of it.
Hmm.
But if we release the grip to our God and just say, guide me and show me what will happen. And I feel like that is truly the story of Chad and I's life. Starting in those early days when we could have panicked and freaked out and made 100 other choices, we chose this choice.
Hmm.
And we had our oldest son, Tyler. And 4 years later, we had our second biological son, Kobe. And I knew in my heart, you are meant to be a mama of a lot of kids. But health struck. And I was told unequivocally, if you have more children, it will probably make your health worse. And at that point, my health was affecting my everyday life.
Hmm.
But making it worse was really scary. And so Chad and I decided that birthing children would not be a part of our future. And I spent about 2 years really mourning that thought. And I'm
Hmm.
gonna say like I mourned it because I did not even consider another option.
Yeah.
I was young still. I was 23, almost 24 years old. I just thought I should have birth children and I had to nurse them, right? Because that's how you bond. This was all the things that were going through my head. And I walked the kids to school every day. And I was walking home from school one day and I thought, you know what? You should go get a newspaper today. And so I walked down to the local 7-Eleven, got a newspaper, came home, sat down with my cup of coffee, and I open up the newspaper and there's this 2-page full spread that says, Marion County foster care parents needed. It's critical. And I'm like, what? And it gave me like these full goosebumps.
Yeah.
And Chad got home that night and I said, what are your thoughts about foster care? And he's like, well, I only have one experience and that's my aunt and uncle. And it wasn't a great experience. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, there's a really big need for foster parents. Do you think we should just try the training? And he's like, yeah, we have nothing to lose. I'm like, okay, great. So we started the training. It's like an
Yeah.
8-week process, 2 hours once a week. And we're like date night, funny date night, but whatever, date night, right?
Right.
And about the second class in, we both looked at Jen and said, we're going to do this, aren't we? And we're like,
Mm,
yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to at least give it a shot.
yeah.
And so our boys were 7 and 11 when our home was certified. And over the next 13 years, we spent as foster parents in our county. We had a lot of NICU babies, so medically fragile babies is what they're considered.
Hmm.
At that point in my life, that's what worked in our family. Birth order was a natural process. I never wanted to put kids older than my boys to take away that identity of theirs. Um, and we really became known as the foster parents that would take a baby in NICU no matter what the needs.
Yeah.
And we ended up adopting 4 children
Mm.
through the course of those 13 years. 22 children were in our home.
Wow.
And it's the biggest tragedy and the biggest gift in the
Mm.
world. And I believe that in my soul. People are like, how could you say that? Because adoption is a tragic story. A child is taken from their mother's womb, the only heartbeat, the only sound, the only smell, all those things that they've ever known. That's trauma. And
Mhm.
so I wish it didn't have to be that way, but it is. And so I feel completely blessed that I was one of the people that got to receive and care and love and nurture those children, whether it was for a year or forever.
Yeah.
Um, and then life happened again. And we decided to leave our state, sell everything, and restart in a piece of property in another state that we thought we would retire at. And our whole family ended up coming with us, adult children and all. And we started building and rebuilding the life that we knew. And I just had these emotions, these feelings that our time in foster care wasn't done, but I knew I was done as a foster parent. I knew
Yeah.
I was exhausted from that aspect. And so I just kept praying. I just kept walking because we have forest land, so I just kept walking and praying. And one day, like there was someone standing next to me, it was like, you're supposed to help the children aging out. And that was all I was given. Not a blueprint, just
Yeah.
you're supposed to help the children aging out. And I was like, what? I've never even had them in my home.
Yeah.
And so I sat with it by myself. I didn't even tell my husband for a long time, probably 6 months, 9 months. And I finally said, I've had this download. What is your thought? And he's like, I think it's amazing. Let's do it. And
I
I'm like,
love how he just responds with the positive. Like there's, uh, yeah, he's just like, let's do it. No question.
no idea how we're going to do it, but let's do it.
Yes. I love
And so
that.
that is how Fostering the Summit came to be. And our dream is to change, really become the disruptor in
Hmm.
the way children age out of the foster care system, to become the disruptor in how they are treated and how they're healing and the tools that they receive prior to being on their own.
Hmm.
And our dream is to build a home that is a model for homes to be built all over the country that does this at the age of about 14 or 15, right when they're hitting high school. And you think about high school, it's such a big transition. But then you
Hmm.
take these kids that have never had consistency, that are in homes that they know they're not going to be adopted, that they're
Yeah.
never going to be able to come back to after they turn 18. And it adds a completely different layer of trauma.
Mm.
And the dream is to bring them into a home 5, 6, 7 at a time and start teaching them the basic skills that we every day take for granted.
Yeah.
Communication, being in a home where people care about what is happening, um, healing, right? Because when we
Yeah.
heal, then we can begin to change that cycle. Because I think the biggest thing that I struggle with is that as a culture, we complain about every system out there, the welfare system, the drug and alcohol system, sex trafficking, homelessness. We
Hmm.
complain about every problem, but we're too afraid to do something to change it.
Yeah.
And these kids are actually the foundation of every one of those systems.
Mm.
If we can help these kids, not blame, not accuse, just help these kids, we could help everything else that we don't like.
Yeah. For sure. I don't really know a lot about the fostering system because we did not foster. But I was just sitting here thinking that just this past week, and my husband and I, we don't really watch movies, but we've been doing this thing starting about 3 weeks ago. We're going to start watching a movie together on the weekends. We watched a movie, can't even think of the name of it. And the family was, it was about fostering and then
Okay.
adoption. And It just hit me. Okay. I know the Lord had me watch that. So I had a little sense of what Corey was going to be sharing about, because exactly what you said is that all the parents that were going through the foster cares, they wanted babies.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want that. I mean, they weren't drawn to the teenagers. And this one family, they they ended up getting, drawn to the 15-year-old, and she had younger siblings, but that was what they said right up front, is people don't want to go and adopt the teenagers. And so what is the aging out like, and what age is that? What does that look like? I don't really know.
So, it's funny. I'm glad you brought that up because I want listeners to think for a second, and just instead of just thinking about a statistic, I want you to think about the emotion behind it, the behavior behind it. These children, on average, the average age that a child enters foster care is between the ages of 6 and 9. So between the ages of 6 and 9 is when our amygdala is forming. It's when connection, there's so much happening in a child's brain, and they are
Right.
ripped from whatever they knew. And everyone's like, well, what?
Mhm.
But it wasn't healthy, or they were being abused. That's not the way the neurological brain works. That home situation was their home. It was their stability, whether it was healthy or not. And
Mhm.
we took that from them. That's all they remember.
Yeah.
Then they're in this foster system. The average child actually is moved almost 7 times over the course of a whole life in foster care. And that is insane.
Yeah.
So, foster care goes until the age of 18 in most states. There are a few states that it actually goes to the age of 21. So when we talk about aging out, what we're saying is at the age of 18, the child's benefits end. The foster parent gets a very small, but a monthly stipend for their needs, and the foster child gets their state's Medicaid. That's the two benefits that that foster child is guaranteed as a child in the state's ward.
Okay.
At the age of 18, literally on the birthday, even though they're not done with high school, that is done. There's no more.
Mhm.
Now, there are some programs that you can work with outside of that that can help, but that would involve the child have the tools and the skills to succeed in those programs. So, what happens then is I would say, I'll be generous, over half of the children in care at that age are then homeless,
Okay.
literally. Right?
Mhm.
Now, they may have a place to go. Like I said, there are some programs, but within 1 year, 24% of 22,000 children a year are homeless, because 22,000 children a year age out of the foster care system, and 24% of them are homeless within the first year. And I mean true homelessness at that point.
Yeah.
At
Wow.
that point, they have no address to get a job,
Mhm.
to get benefits, to, I go, have a college application mailed to them, right? There's nothing for them to do once they become homeless. Once they become homeless, survival comes in. That's when the sex trafficking comes in. That's when the drug and alcohol abuse comes in. I could go on and on about
Yeah.
statistics, but I want to remove the statistics. I want those to be the slap you in your face moment. But
Mhm.
let's go back to the human being that is being affected, this child. Because we think about our own children at 18. You've had them age out of your home. I've had them turn 18 in my home. And I think about the fact that they didn't have a foundation. If they wouldn't have had someone to call, still to this
Mhm.
day with their own children, what would it look like? What would have been different?
Yeah. Yeah, it's making me really think through some things, because like I said, I wasn't super familiar with how foster care works, even though you and I have had some
Yeah.
conversations. We haven't gone into depth like this. And so, like, honestly, my prayer is that there is someone listening to this call or this podcast, and they're thinking, hey, is this, maybe it's the call that's
Yeah.
for them, just like when you opened up the newspaper
Absolutely.
and you saw that
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah. Because I believe that we can't all be foster parents, but we
Hmm.
can all do something. And that
Yeah.
is critical. Foster care is an epidemic in the United States of America because of the drug and alcohol epidemic,
Yeah.
right? Let alone 100 other reasons why. Just the drug and alcohol epidemic alone is creating an orphan epidemic within our own walls of our country. This isn't new. This is
Yeah.
old. This has been going on for decades. But what I've learned is that no, maybe not everybody could be a foster parent. And I would challenge that in a lot of ways, but
Hmm.
maybe not, right? But you can support a foster parent. And I will tell you that being a foster parent is by far the hardest, loneliest job I've ever had in my life.
Mm,
Because you're expected to act as a parent with no rights, because you
yeah.
have no rights. You are expected to do all the things that a parent should want to do, but you have no say so in their well-being. So the loneliness is real.
Hmm.
There was actually a point in our foster care journey where we sued the state of Oregon, and that became even more lonely. But it was something we had to do. We had had a child in our care since birth, and the caseworker at time, and I am not bashing caseworkers. Caseworkers are amazing. They have the hardest job, but this caseworker was not doing her job. And so we had to get what they call intervener status. And what that is actually hiring our own attorney to say the state is not doing their job. So it's suing the state. Talk
Yeah.
about black sheep, right? But it was about this child's well-being.
Yeah.
And I will say, I am not putting myself on a pedestal. That's the last thing I want. That's the last thing most foster parents want. But this child would have went back had we not done that to a remote village in the southernmost part of Mexico with extreme medical needs and no medical care
Mm.
because her father was deported.
Oh. Hmm.
It would have taken almost 6 hours to get to the nearest hospital from their village. And this child had significant medical needs. And they were considering it because
And
they didn't know the child.
your motherly instincts took
Yeah.
over because as moms, we do what we have to do to
Ooh.
protect the child.
Yes. And I'm so thankful for so many things. The child in care, what that we had in care had an amazing attorney because the child has their own attorney. We had an amazing attorney who we ended up hiring. We had an
Hmm.
amazing judge, not because they sided with us, but because they heard truth. They heard the case
Yeah.
and they saw the facts. They didn't judge this child or this case by a policy. They judged it by humanness.
Yeah.
And that is such a critical part of the care.
Mm. Yes, of course, I'm sure. So tell us, so you fostered, then you adopted
Yep.
four of those children
Sure.
you
Yep.
fostered. So what did that look like? How does that process,
Sure. Yeah.
briefly go into play?
Yeah. It's interesting. So a child cannot be up for adoption in most cases before a year. So they've got to be into care for an entire year. And the state is working a plan. They have created a reunification. The goal is to reunify with their parents, their birth
Hmm.
family. So there's a reunification plan, and they have about a year, and give or take that, about a year to work that plan. Over the course of that year, there is a hearing about every 2 to 3 months, looking at where the plan is, what can be flexed, what can be changed, how can the state assist the biological parents, how can the state assist the foster parents, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And after a year, there is a change in the court. Either reunification happens and there's like about a 3 month window to make reunification, or the plan changes to adoption. And then once the plan changes to adoption, it actually can go back to reunification. But this is the plan right now. You are not working your plan. You are not doing what you're asked to do, whether that's being dry and sober, getting housing, getting a job. There could be, a million things
Hmm.
that their plan involves. If they continue to not work their plan, then they have a set amount of time before adoption is finalized. That is the finalized plan.
Hmm.
Once the plan is finalized during that process of time, usually 6 months to a year, depending on the parents, right? If they start working their plan, then it will get pushed. So during that time, they're finding a home for this child, an adoptive home. If that's the foster home that they've been in the whole case, great. But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
More times than not, actually, foster parents are not looking to adopt. They are looking to be the safe place in between.
Hmm.
So there's a plan. And we had a child that this happened with. And it was really awesome because we got to be a part of the adoption committee. We got to help select this family for this child. And there's many reasons why we couldn't adopt this child, but there is a plan, there is a
Yeah.
process. But it can be very frustrating because you think you know what you think you know, and or you think the plan is going to be as such, and then it all
Mhm.
changes.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a testament to God's will and patience and just releasing the control. And I'm not going to say I always mastered that. I
Yeah.
didn't. I and we shed a lot of tears. And people would ask, "Well, how do you keep doing it?" And I said, "When I stop crying, tell me because then I shouldn't be doing this anymore."
Yeah.
Right? Because these children deserve that connection. These
Mhm.
children deserve that love. So once we adopt, it's really all through the state. There's no master, we don't have to go hire our own attorney or anything like that. Everything is taken care of through the state. So moves to adoption, you can have a court hearing if you want. You don't have to. We always did. We had big parties afterwards. A lot of times bio families would be invited if they wanted to
Mhm.
be. We had a very open home with our bio families, and I don't regret that for anything. And the court says yes, they sign the papers, and from that day forward, the child is a member of your family.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is giving me goosebumps right now, just hearing about it. And like I said, and you know this, but some of our listeners might not, that our adoption story is not of fostering, but at the same time, so very heartfelt. And I know that I have had friends in the past who have, fostered children, and my heart was always thinking, I don't know if I could ever foster because you have to give those children back most times. And a couple friend of ours that did that for several years, and they never did adopt, but they were that safe place. And I always just felt such a love for them to love children like that so much that
Yes.
they were just rooting for the mom to get, because typically it's the mom, get your life straightened around so you can get your kids back. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I have loved every part of hearing your story today and in the past. And so if you would tell our listeners about your family right now, tell us about the kids and grandkids, all the things, so we can
So
kind of
there,
get
yeah.
another picture.
There's six of them. So there's six kids, two daughter-in-laws, and four grandbabies. So there's 14 of us in all, and
Yeah,
we do a lot of things together. So it is kind of a room stopping situation when we walk through a door.
I
They're like,
bet.
they keep coming. Where are they all
Yeah.
coming from?
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's we're all in Northwest Montana. Like I said, our adult children followed us here after we decided to relocate, and it is crazy. It's beautiful. It's by no means perfect, but I think that's the beauty of it is that we keep growing and changing and talking together. One of my adult children are actually on the board of directors for our nonprofit,
Mhm.
and want to continue to be a part of that story. So you know, and that's the thing. A lot of people would say, how do your bio children do it? It was hard. I
Yeah.
will never tell anyone that it was not the hardest thing we've ever done.
Mhm.
But I also believe it was worth every tear, every heartache, every scar, because there's a lot of scars.
Mhm. So how old was your youngest son, your biological son, when you first adopted?
When we first adopted, so my daughter Haley and my son Kobe are 10 years apart. So he was 10 years
Okay.
old. Yep.
Okay.
So they're 31, 27, 17, 13, 10, and 6.
And 6. So you still have a couple little ones at home.
Yeah, I still have those little ones. They came in, and our youngest actually was the one adoption that didn't fall into that cycle I just explained to you at all.
Okay.
We were actually asked to make a decision when she was 3 months old. So there
Mhm.
are exceptions.
Yeah.
And one of our children that we actually had the intervener status on was almost 3. So there's the gamut.
Yeah. So so was she the youngest at 3 months? Or was she 3 months
No,
old or with?
no.
Okay.
All of our babies, not all of our babies, all of the children we adopted came home with us from the hospital. They never entered anybody else's home. We actually went to NICU and picked them up
Okay.
as medically fragile children. Our I would say out of the 22, 12 of them were that situation. And then the
Okay.
other 10 to 12, depending, I'd have to go back and count for sure, were maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years old. One we did pick up from the hospital, peds patient, but
Hmm.
and she was a month old. So, but she wasn't actually considered from the nursery. So, because she was
I
in
gotcha.
pediatrics. So, um, we yeah, these 4 children never actually saw anybody else's home. Our
Yeah.
smallest baby came in at 4 pounds, 1 ounce, and actually had to be in what they call a car seat cradle, which was
Hmm.
a very interesting, situation I'd never been in. Our 10-year-old actually was in NICU for 31 days. So lots of different reasons, lots of different medical
Hmm.
stuff. But I was raised with with a nurse, a pediatric nurse, and so it was actually my comfort zone. Now Chad had to change a lot of things about his comfort zone
Yeah.
because it was not his comfort zone. But he quickly realized that it wasn't as hard as we think it's going to be,
Hmm.
and that they still need all the same things.
Yeah. Well, even though he had to change some of those things, he was definitely a yes man and he was supporting you every step of the way. I love that. It's so amazing. So, tell us real quick if there is a mom who's listening right now and she's like, she's been considering adoption or she's been considering foster care, or maybe she hasn't been considering either. That's where I was. I wasn't considering either when the Lord brought the additions to our family. What would you say to that mom that's listening that maybe she's wanting to expand her family? Maybe she can't get pregnant. Maybe she's just doesn't know. What would you say to her to give her the encouragement with adoption and or foster care?
Curiosity. You don't know until you learn more. No, we always say it, knowledge is power, and it's no different in this situation. Knowledge is
Mhm.
power. When we know more, we can understand more, and then we can figure it out from there.
Yeah.
Will it be perfect? No. Reach out and have conversations. Reach out to me. And you may not know me, but have a conversation with me. Reach out to someone in your area that may, you have experience with, that would want to just have a conversation. Reach out to your state agency and just say, when's your next, foster care training session? You are not obligated. You go to this training session, you are not obligated to just sign any paperwork. So
Hmm.
you could go through the courses and get the very basics, because that's all the 8 weeks is the very
Yeah.
basics of care. You really don't get what you need. I will say that with a grain of salt. So,
Hmm.
and if you continue to do foster care, continue to be curious, continue to be your own best advocate, because that is how you will prosper and that is how you will advocate for the children the best.
Good. That's amazing. Well, tell us how can, if any of the listeners are on here and they want to reach out to you or they want more information about your nonprofit, tell us how they can get in touch with you.
Well, if you want to have a conversation, just DM me. I'm on
Okay.
Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Corree Roofener Coach on Instagram, Corree Roofener on Facebook. If you want more information about the nonprofit, fosteringthesummit.org is the best place to do it. It's a very simple, easy to read website, but it gives us all the basic stuff that we're doing right now, a little bit about our dream, a little bit about our board of directors, and it also gives you a place to reach out to us if you want more information.
Okay, great. Well, I will drop all of that in the show notes so that our listeners can get in touch with you, whether it's DM or through the nonprofit or whatever that is. And I am just so thrilled. I'm really feeling giddy right now. I'm like, I want to go home and watch that movie again because I want to have some more perspective on that. But thank you so much, my sweet friend, for being on here and sharing all of this beautifulness with us. And I just love you so much.
I love you too, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, we'll chat soon.
That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom, keep showing up bold, and never forget, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.